There's a really cool CSS property that we can make use of that will allow us to stack elements on top of one another. In our case, our 4 colored boxes, we can literally layer them one on top of the other, and then we can change that stacking order, very similar to how we would work with stacking order in a traditional graphics program. So let me show you how this property works. It's called z-index, by the way. And before I show you z-index, just a quick note. Notice I've pulled my 4 colored divs all the way back to where we started. So once again, if I flip over to my code, you can see I'm all the way back to where we began. So to get this to work, what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw some properties onto each of my colored divs. Just bear with me for a second. I'm going to set each of their positions to absolute. There we go. And then what I'll do is I'll set a top value for each of these guys. I'm going to start off with 10 pixels. And then I'll also set a left value for these guys. And I'll start off with 10 pixels, just like that. So of course, if I save and refresh the browser, the yellow box is now moved all the way up to the extreme top left corner of the browser window. That's great. Okay, so basically what I'm going to do is repeat that for my 3 other divs, making minor changes to the top and left values. So I'm just going to grab all that code that I just copied in there and I'll paste it into each of my divs, just like this. So just bear with me for a moment. There we go, something like that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to increment the top and left values. I'm going to double them each time. So 10 to 20, and then 20 to 40. There we go, something like that. And then 40 to 80. Just so we have these different offset values so we can actually see all 4 objects all stacked on top of one another, just like that, okay? So as you can see, without even introducing the z-index property, we already have stacking orders. So the first container, the yellow div, appears all the way down at the back, then the next one, then the next one, and of course the last one appears on top. Well, what if I wanted to bring the yellow div all the way to the front of this stack? Well, that's where I'd have to invoke my z-index. And here's how it works. I'm just going to drop my cursor into this first div. And I'm going to go z-index, just like this, : space, and then some sort of a value, whatever value I want. Perhaps I could try 2, or maybe 5, or even 100, or even higher than that. Now, how it works is a higher z-index means that the object is going to appear higher in the stacking order than an object with a lower z-index. Okay, so I'm going to go with 100 here because I want to make sure that this guy definitely appears on top of everything else. I'm going to go ahead and save my file and go back to the browser and refresh. And sure enough, there is the yellow div now on top of the 3 other divs. Okay? Now, if I want to move the blue div on top of everything, then what I'd need to do is I would need to set a z-index that's higher than the z-index that's used on the yellow object. So I'd have to come in here and go z-index, : space, and then anything higher than 100 would do the job, even 101, something like this. Save that guy up, back over to the browser, and refresh, and there we go. Okay, so you can mess around with the stacking order. You can have some fun with it. Now, of course, the big question is, this is all fine and well, but where would we actually use this? Well, I think once we get into actually building a page layout, we may want to have some kind of a pop-up appear on screen that appears on top of all of the other content. Maybe we want people to sign up for our newsletter or something like this. And to ensure that that object, that pop-up window appears on top of all the other content, we'd have to make sure that we've set a fairly high z-index value. But anyway, that's the basics. That's how the z-index property functions.